Hey, it is Cathryn Warburton again, your Legal Lioness, and we are talking about bulletproofing your business. And this topic, business bullies, is one of the topics that really gets me going. Bullies are something that I do not tolerate at all, and in fact, that's one of the reasons why I do the job that I do, because I was bullied mercilessly as a child, and the day that I stood up to my nemesis, I realized that actually he stopped bullying me, but he actually stopped bullying a whole lot of other kids as well. And then I realized the power of standing up to the bully. So the mistake that people make in relation to business bullies is often, well, is twofold. It's one is just being really trusting and assuming that people are going to be honest and decent in business when that is not always the case. And the second one is not being prepared for business bullies. So the first one is fairly easily solved. If you have a deal with someone and you put it in writing, and I've discussed it in another module in this course, if you do that, you should be fine. More difficult for people to sometimes deal with is when people are actually threatening your business, threatening your livelihood, becoming quite irrational, and how do you deal with that? I had a client, or I have a client, Jackson, who traveled overseas to do some coaching with an overseas client. The overseas client turned out to be a bit of a stalker, and this overseas client became very bullying and threatening. Jackson didn't feel safe. He had to report it to the police. He contacted me on Facebook because obviously he was overseas. He couldn't ring me with advice on what to do. And it was a very difficult and stressful situation. And when Jackson got back to Australia, it still lingered over him. Now, that is the most extreme case I've seen in my 20 plus years as a lawyer. But it is important to remember that not everybody is mentally stable. Not everybody that you come in contact with is going to be rational. So it becomes extra important to work out exactly the boundaries of working relationships. The person who had been stalking Jackson had somehow believed that this was going to be a romantic liaison, and Jackson was very much married. So this was never going to be the case. But he hadn't really put any boundaries or rules in place before he left for his trip. So what do you do about business bullies? So number one, you have clear boundaries in place. So that might be your terms and conditions. It might be a collaboration agreement. Even bullet points are better than not having anything at all. You need to put down exactly what your obligations are and what the other person's obligations are, whether that's things that you're physically going to do, money that's being paid over, that kind of thing. Also, what will happen if things go wrong? What would have happened if Jackson had missed his flight, for example? So get your boundaries clear. Number two, this is practical more than anything, is have a really good vetting process for your clients. So what do I mean by this? Is very often people will have, or businesses will have, a process by which there is a client questionnaire, for example, on the website, and you get the client in advance to fill out the questionnaire, and that will weed out some of, I don't want to say crazy, some of the unsuitable clients. A lot of distraction and distress happens where businesses and clients are mismatched. So you might offer a Rolls-Royce service, they might be wanting a VW Beetle kind of thing. You might be offering a do-it-yourself, they might expect you to do it all for them. And so a qualifying questionnaire can also just weed out some of the problematic elements. Even if you have a robust vetting process in your business, sometimes you can still have problems. Now, just yesterday, I was helping a client of mine, Jennifer, Jennifer runs a coaching program, and she requires a fair deposit up front when she starts, and then there's more money that needs to be paid. And like many coaching programs, the deposit is non-refundable. And one of the reasons Jennifer does this is to make sure that the client is committed before they start, because she doesn't want to work with anyone who doesn't want to work with her. So the conversation yesterday was a client who had accused Jennifer of unethical tactics in sales tactics, just being quite outrageous. And if any of these things that the client had said had been made public, they definitely would have amounted to defamation. It was quite horrendous, and it was some personal attacks on Jennifer, on her staff. She's got a fairly big organization, and this person who signed up and then changed their mind became quite vicious. Some of my eyes were watering with some of the comments that I was reading. And so whether it's you running your business yourself, or you've got clients that are dealing with customers, it is important to understand that sometimes people are not going to be kind, and sometimes people are going to be insulting and rude and mean, and sometimes they lie. They do. Sometimes they are dishonest, and they will say you did something when you didn't, or you promised something when you didn't. And so that's why it is so important to always keep a record of conversations you have with people, things that you've promised them. In my own business, what I do is I actually do audio recordings of all of my telephone calls. All of my meetings that I have with clients are audio recorded. If I have a Zoom online meeting with you, that is recorded, as long as the technology doesn't fail us. And so these recordings have been in the past really invaluable to me. I've been doing this for 20 years, and it's a very occasionally that you get somebody who goes off the rails, but sometimes they do. I personally had one client who accused me of doing the opposite in her case that she instructed me to do. It was a intellectual property case, and I had recommended settlement, and she was adamant she was never settling with these American giant multinational. They think they can do whatever they want. And so I thought the settlement offer was extremely fair. I suggested very strongly that she accepts it, and she was not interested. She wanted to prove her point. She wanted to have her day in court. So anyway, another 6 months go past. We go through the whole legal process, and it's getting now to the pointy end where it's about to hot up and actually get in front of a judge. And she phoned me furious, saying, why didn't I suggest to her a basis on which to settle? And then she came up with this great settlement plan, which was exactly what she had refused 6 months before. And I said to her, well, we did discuss it. Here's my note of our conversation, and here's the link to the recording. Now, I do get people's permission, obviously, to record them. And when I do the recording, my clients love it, because then they get me twice, basically. They get me in the meeting or on the phone call, and then they get to have the advice again when they re-listen to it. But it serves two purposes. One, it's pretty cool to have to be able to listen to it again. But the second thing is that it makes sure that there's no misunderstanding, because if that thing with my client had gone further, how would I have been able to prove that she was making it up, which was quite clear when you listen to the recording. And interestingly, this particular client was one who I traveled on holiday, and she lived part of the route where I was traveling, and I went out of my way to go to where she lived, and I met her, and we had lunch, and she met my children, And I felt that she was so lovely, and we had a personal connection, and we had similar stories, and I felt we could be friends. I trusted her, but I still did the right thing by keeping proper records and being professional about it. And I think sometimes with small business owners, you don't want to be documenting everything because it kind of feels weird. It might feel like you're saying to the person you don't trust them, but it's not that at all. You provide a copy of the recording or notes of your conversation because that's the professional thing to do. And sometimes it's going to help you if the person becomes, has a different recollection of reality than what you do. Now, even if you are doing business with family or friends, or maybe especially when you're doing business with family or friends, this rule of keeping records of what's been agreed is really important, because sometimes we can be a little bit more relaxed with our record keeping, not expecting anything to go wrong. And very often all you have to do is show the person the notes or let them listen to the recording, and then that's the end of any potential dispute because they can't argue against it. It's, you said that and I said that, and there it is on the recording. It helps stop people who are going to try and bully you before they even get started. Now, another type of business bully that there is out there are the ones that want a freebie. So I read in the paper the other day about a blogger who wanted to stay at a motel for free. She wasn't a blogger, she was a YouTube star. She wanted to stay at a motel for free. And the motel owner said to her, well, look, how's that going to help me pay my staff who I have to put on to clean your room and feed you? And it turned out actually she hadn't done her research because this motel owner was very social media savvy. And he had like 4 times more followers than she did. Anyway, it sort of came across that if you let me stay for free, I'll say nice things about you. And if you don't, well, I'm going to trash you. Anyway, he then put the exchange on social media without revealing her name. So he felt a little bit extorted. And then she came onto social media ranting and going crazy and saying, well, how can you say these mean things to me in front of millions of people? But he didn't reveal who she was. She revealed her identity. So there was a massive backlash against her because it was quite clear from the exchange that she had been fairly threatening when he decided not to give her the free weekend. She became very threatening. And so in that situation, it actually worked in favor of the motel owner because everybody said, well, I'll come and stay at your motel in Scotland because you're so awesome and you're so good with social media and you don't bow to pressure. But what happens in your own business if somebody says, you have sent me something and it was broken and you're confident it wasn't, or you've provided these services and you didn't provide the services you promised to provide? What do you do then? Again, firstly, make sure it's very clear in your terms and conditions what it is you're providing and what they're paying for, what circumstances you will offer a refund, if any. Talk to the person. Sometimes it's just a miscommunication, a phone call. See what else you can do to resolve the matter without escalating it. Sometimes people just do want to fight though, so understand that. If you speak to somebody in a dispute situation, be very, very careful about what you say because anything you say can be held against you. So it is very important not to apologize. That is very important. I've had so many clients come to me after they've received a letter of demand from Getty Images about infringing copyright. Clients will come to me and say, oh, I've sent this email, and the email says, I'm so sorry, I didn't know I was infringing. I'm like, you just admitted you infringed. There's nothing I can do to help you. So don't ever apologize, although it's a human nature to apologize. My mum got into a fender bender. Somebody crashed into her car, and my mum popped out and went, I'm so sorry, are you okay? And that actually nearly invalidated the insurance claim that my mum filed, because the insurance said, we will only pay if you can guarantee that you didn't apologise. So, well, no, I don't think they said it quite that way. They said they pay provided you haven't apologised, so, or admitted liability, and an apology is taken as admitting liability. Anyway, the damage wasn't great. Everybody was fine, but it's our natural inclination. But when you apologise, sometimes it's taken as an admission, a legal admission that something has gone wrong. You know, your service has been defective, or your product was bad, for example. So be careful about apologising. Also, sometimes it really is necessary to get a lawyer in at that stage, and sometimes a legal letter is the only thing that will stop the business bully. I have a client who, her daughter actually is a social media up-and-coming star. She's not very well known, but she's got thousands of followers, and she does this unboxing craze. So you send her a thing, whatever the product is, she opens it up, she tests it, and then she tells you if she thinks it's wonderful or not. Now, obviously, well, according to Australian law, you cannot engage in conduct that is misleading or deceptive in trade. So this is her trade, this unboxing. So she cannot give false testimonies. She cannot give a false testimonial. So it has to be true. So she was paid, I think, $200 to do 3 of these things for 3 different makeup types of makeup. There was lip gloss, there was something else, and then there was mascara. So she did the first one. She loved the product, beautiful review. Second one, she loved the product, beautiful review. Third one, she was pretty happy with it. But what she said was it made her eyelashes a little bit clumpy. And for her personally, she didn't really like that look. Some people like it bunched together. But she said for her, she probably wouldn't buy it because that wasn't a look she liked. And she was very fair. I mean, everything else she said was very positive. And she received a threatening letter from the talent agency saying that they were going to tell all of their clients that she was irresponsible, unprofessional, and unreliable. So she had tried to be reasonable with them. There was really not much she could do. So I sent a letter on her behalf and told them that if we became aware of any such comments being made, it would amount to defamation, and we most certainly would be considering taking it further. We then got a letter of apology saying, oh, no, sorry, that's not what we meant. We said we were going to say all these mean things about her, but we're not actually. They just wanted to force her to give a good review. And that was against not only her personal moral code, but actually illegal according to the Australian consumer law. So in that situation, the only thing that got them to back down was a legal letter from me telling them in no uncertain terms that we would not tolerate this business bullying. So how you react to business bullying, obviously it depends on the situation, but sometimes you do need a strongly worded letter just to cut things off at the knees. I also find with some of my clients that if things go wrong and you get a bit of a pushback from clients or people you've worked with, sometimes if you take a hard stance in one situation, you'll get a good reputation. Oh, not if it's a good reputation, but you'll get a reputation as somebody who knows the law and is not scared to enforce it. So, for example, I have got a client who is a photographer, and she takes it very seriously, and the word on the street is don't mess with that particular photographer because she will not tolerate it if you infringe her copyright. So sometimes spending a little bit of money to resolve one potential dispute gives you a reputation, and then that helps you avoid future legal disputes, if that makes sense. People know, don't mess with that person. So, yeah, business bullying is real. You do need to be careful who you deal with. Try and check people out as much as you can. Have your terms worked out as much as you can. But at the end of the day, in business, most of us are going to come across people who are just odd. Maybe they have different ethical compass than we do. And sometimes people are dishonest. So it's important to have an idea in your mind as to what you're going to do. And some of my clients actually have a business buddy that they buddy up with. And if they have a difficult business situation, they will talk to their business buddy about it. And sometimes the business buddy can give them a suggestion for a solution that they might not have thought of themselves. So brace yourself, because it can be a bumpy ride, but that's all part of the excitement. So hopefully you're not experiencing business bullies, but if you are, book in and have a chat to me, because very often I can brainstorm a good solution for you.